Gibb Rice, and we are at the 398th Bomb Group reunion in Livonia, Michigan, September 2006. I'd like for you to state your name and tell us about yourself.
My name is Clarence King. I was born in Gray Station, Tennessee. My folks moved to Detroit when I was 4 years old. Later we moved to Leonard, Michigan. There was where I was living when the war was declared. I had learned to fly, so I went down and tried to enlist in the Air Force. I was 4F. Didn't pass the physical. I made the writtens all right, but I couldn't pass the physical. I asked about if I could have the condition corrected, and they said, well, you could have an operation and then wait 6 months, and if you pass the physical, you're in. So I had the operation, changed my whole life. I was in a nursing training hospital for the operation. My wife was a student nurse there. So I met her, and when I got my commission, we got married. I was sent to join a group in Rapid City, the 398. Went overseas with them, flew 33 missions. Actually, nothing eventful happened there, I can say. Had some humorous things, but missions weren't bad. I came home from Rapid City. I was assigned to Memphis, Tennessee, ferrying airplanes around the United States. I did that until I got my discharge.
So how old were you when you joined the Air Force? How old were you when you joined the Air Force?
I was, let's see, that was in 43. So I was probably 22 when I joined the Air Force.
And you already knew how to fly?
Mm-hmm. In fact, there was a group of us worked for Chrysler Corporation. We were all interested in flying. We'd talk about it. So we bought an airplane, formed a club when we bought an airplane. And we figured we needed 10 members. Well, there's only 5 of us worked at Chrysler, so we had a doctor, and a newspaper reporter, and a lawyer, and I don't remember what the other 2 were, but they were businessmen, and they made more money than we did in the factory. So when we got the airplane paid for, they wanted to buy a bigger, faster airplane, either buy a 4-place or get just a faster 2-place. And we felt we couldn't afford to do that. We wanted relief from payments, and every meeting we would have with the club, which was once a month, it would come up and be the same thing, 5 for and 5 against. So the president said, well, I think the only thing is we're never going to solve this. I think the thing to do is sell the airplane, dissolve the club. We did that. We sold the airplane on Friday, divided the Monday up, and Sunday was Pearl Harbor.
Wow.
So I went down and tried to enlist in the Air Force.
Yeah.
Flunked the physical.
Yeah. So, and then you were a pilot?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I was a co-pilot on Captain Jim Davidson's crew. Mm-hmm. And he got a desk job, and then I kind of floated. I didn't have a regular pilot. A couple of missions I flew as instructor pilots with new crews. But when I got 33 missions in, and I don't know why I got 33 missions in, most people only put in 28.
Well, and some did 35 too, though. Yeah. Can you tell me about your pilot training?
Well, I went to Ballinger, Texas for primary. Of course, we was down at San Antonio for pre-flight training, all the bookwork, stuff like that we went through. I went to Ballinger, Texas for pre-flight training. We flew single-engine, low-wing airplanes. I went from there to Goodfellow Field that was at San Angelo, Texas. And from there we went to Lubbock, Texas for twin-engine training. When we graduated from there, we were given a leave and then assigned to a base when we come back from our leave, which was Rapid City for 398th Bomb Group.
Is that the first time you flew the B-17?
First time I was in one, yes.
Yeah.
I had seen them.
And how is it different from flying the two-engine planes?
Flying.
Flying?
Yeah.
Wasn't much different?
There's not that much difference in flying.
Yeah.
You got the basics and maybe a little heavier on the controls, your bigger airplane. Yep. You don't think about movements of the controls when you're flying. You think about putting pressure on them.
Right.
You actually move them some. That isn't the way you think. You put a little pressure on.
Yeah.
Right foot, left foot, turn your hand,
Yeah.
pull back or push forward.
Right.
So it doesn't really make any difference what you're flying. You just put enough pressure on to get the results you want.
That's good. So did you become pilot?
When did I become a pilot?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hadn't got my private license yet when the war come. I was still building up time to get a private license. I was just a student pilot then. But I had to go through the training all the way just like I hadn't had any.
Right.
And I graduated with the class of 44A. I should have been out in 43K, but I got a ear infection and spent a couple of weeks in a hospital. While I was there, the doctors loved to practice, So they took my tonsils out. I had a deviated septum where I'd had a broken nose one time, and they straightened that up. And so I spent 3 weeks in the hospital, so I got put back a month graduating.
Yeah. So when did you fly to England? When did you arrive in England?
I beg your pardon?
When did you arrive in England?
In England, I do not remember. It was in May sometime, or the last of July, or whenever the group got over. I went over with the group. We flew over.
Okay.
In fact, we were one of the last planes to get there. When we were leaving to go over, it was discovered the wing on our airplane was damaged. They thought it was sabotage, but we don't know, but they had to replace a wing. So it took them about a week to get that done. So we were one of the last planes in the group to get there in the original group. But every plane flew over alone. We didn't fly over in formation.
Yeah.
Every plane went alone.
Right. So what was your first impression of the country?
Of England? I liked it. I was a farm boy, and we were out in the country, and I got along good with the people. Captain Davidson was a squadron commander, and because of his position in the crew, he was supposed to be first at any briefing or anything. Because of that, I had a bicycle to ride, and I rode all over England within close distance. When I wasn't on duty, I was riding that bicycle around England.
Oh, that was good.
And I liked the people, got along well with them, liked the country. My mother was English to begin with.
Oh, that was good. Yeah. So can you tell us about your first mission?
I can't remember a thing about it.
No?
I don't know where we did or what.
Well, can you tell us about, just a mission, an average mission, what it was like?
Actually, they're kind of boring.
Yeah.
When we first started, we had the fighters attacked in us. And then our planes got air supremacy, and we didn't see fighters anymore, so all we had to worry about was flak, anti-aircraft fire, or make sure we didn't have a mid-air collision with some of our own planes, which happened once in a while. Mm-hmm. But we did come home with 3 engines a few times, which was no big fleet. In fact, we went on the mission with 3 engines.
All right. Can you describe your feelings during a mission?
Just sitting there, wait for something to happen. I had one mission that we flew 36 ship groups. We flew different size, but that time we was flying 36 ship groups. The group from another base ahead of us flew into a box barrage. A box barrage is where they have all these anti-aircraft guns, and one of them is aimed at a different spot in the sky that forms a box, and they all shoot at the same time. Not very effective. But the group ahead of us flew into a box just as they fired it, and that knocked them all out of formation. And we were the next ones around. I squatted down the seat a little lower and said, "Oh boy, it's in your hands now."
Yeah.
I'm not much for religious type prayers. I talk to them on a man-to-man basis when I need to.
So did you ever get shot down?
No,
And did you ever have to bail out?
no.
No.
No, we always brought the airplane home. We never had that much trouble. Maybe an engine out and one partial, I think, was the worst. We had turbochargers for flying at altitude, and sometimes one of them would blow a coupling, and then you didn't have the turbocharger. That's why I say 1.5. At altitude, you only developed half the power. And then you had another engine out, but they flew real good that way. When we were going through flight training, this was fairly new to train a bunch of pilots. So they took some of us students that were just starting, and they flew us to Kelly Field, Texas, once a week. And we went through a whole bunch of tests that psychologists were dreaming up. They wanted to find out if any of these tests would help them select people that would make pilots. And then they followed our career through. I don't know what they found out from it, if anything. Some of them were dexterity tests, some were mental, and some were combinations. But they just dream up a test, and when we come down, we'd have a whole bunch of us, and we'd take it. And next month, be back again.
So what did your parents approve of you serving in the military?
They didn't. That was my life to live. Well, my parents thought they brought me up right, told me what was right and wrong. And then I had to do my own steering my life through. And I think they were all proud that I went in the Air Force and that I made it, but no comments were ever made one way or another.
Yeah. And you got married before you went over?
I got married, I said I met my wife when I was in the hospital so I could get in, and you couldn't get married while you was going through flight training. You couldn't be married even. And not be a first lieutenant when you graduated. They had some married people that had been married for a while went in, and they were flight officers. They were not lieutenants, second lieutenant, not first, second lieutenants. But when I went home on leave, well, we got married. And then she went out to Rapid City, South Dakota, where I was based, and stayed there while we went overseas. And then she went back to Detroit and waited.
Till you got back. So when did you get out? Do you remember when you got out?
I do not remember the exact time. I came home from overseas, and I got to Detroit on my birthday, September the 29th. I can remember that. But
Yeah.
when I actually got out, then I went to ferrying airplanes. I would go to the East Coast and pick them up, sometimes Florida, sometimes another base, and take them to a storage field, sometimes in Arkansas, sometimes in Tennessee, different places, where they'd have a field just full of airplanes.
Right.
Then I'd take a bus back down to Memphis where I was based, and once in a while, if a group of us went to the same place, they'd fly an airplane up and pick us up, take us down. But that was later. When I first got out, I went to instructing. I instructed one class of cadets in flying instruments and twin-engine airplanes, and then I went to ferrying airplanes.
So how long did you stay in the Air Force?
I don't even remember when I got out now. Probably got something on record, but I don't remember when I got out. I know I was in the Air Force when the Germans surrendered. I was in Memphis, Tennessee. Wife and I was walking down the street of Memphis, Tennessee, and they announced it. Everybody started jumping up and down and yelling and singing.
I would imagine so. Tell us about your crew members, the rest of the guys in your crew.
My crew members? Well, Captain Davidson was the first pilot, and we lost touch of him after we got out. In fact, I lost touch with almost all the crew members. And I've tried to get in touch with them, and I haven't. I was a co-pilot, and Henry Timbrook was a navigator, and his father had iron foundry in Indiana. And he was married to a very beautiful woman. He got written up on one of these magazines where they have women on the outside. And the title of the article was, "It's Hell to Be Married to a Beautiful Woman." He was a great golfer. He loved to shoot golf. He says, "I can sink a 35-foot putt. Does anybody congratulate me?" He says, "Hell no. Nobody even saw it. They're all looking at my wife." Stevens was a bombardier, and he was in the a hotel in London that got hit by a buzz bomb. Up, you know how they work. They flew along until they run out of fuel, and then they come down. Whatever they hit, they hit. And he was by the window packing up, and the window shuttered from the blast and cut his face and eyes up. He wrote me a letter one time, like a kid learning to write. He was printing, and the letters were like 2 inches high. But I lost touch with him. Well, let's see. That took 4 of us officers. I can't think what Whitey's last name was. We always called him Whitey. He was the engineer. But when we first went into combat, we had a lot of German fighters that attacked us. And they would come out ahead of the formation and fly towards us. And then they'd do a slow roll while they were firing all their guns and cannons. They weren't aiming at anybody. They were just putting stuff up there that we'd fly into and maybe damage the airplane. And then after our pilots got air supremacy, where we didn't see any Germans hardly, but before they got the air supremacy, it made a difference who was escorting us. If the 47th, and there were all good airplanes now, but the 47 was like driving a truck compared to a racing car, the P-51. And the 47 would be out to one side of us, and the Germans would be hitting us from the other side. They had come through the formation, they'd be out there, and they'd drop their belly tank. To get the range, they had to have a big tank on the belly of the airplane full of gas. They'd drop that, then they'd warm up their guns, and then they'd come through our formations to get to the German fighters. If you had the P-51s out there, the fighters hit us, they turned towards our formation, and while I was coming through it, they're dropping their belly tanks and warming up their guns. And if you had the P-38 sitting out there, you never saw no Germans. They didn't bother us. They stayed away from them.
They were good little friends, weren't they?
But that,
They were good little friends to you.
well, they could maneuver better. The airplane, because of the way the propeller turns, can turn one way better than it can turn the other way. And the P-38 had 2 propellers counter-rotating, so it didn't matter which way they had to turn, they could turn equally sharp.
Right.
So they were more maneuverable, so they didn't tangle with them.
Yeah.
I think we got a few bullet holes once in a while, but nothing dangerous. Most of our engine out situations we had was from flak. And a hole would go, a piece of flak would go through the oil cooler, and all the oil would leak out. So usually, I caught it before that happened. In fact, always I caught it before it happened. That was my job, to monitor things like that. I'd catch it and feather that engine, and we'd bring the engine home. All I had to do was put a new oil cooler in. We got a few holes from flak in the wings, tail. On one mission one time, we had a great big piece of metal hit the mount where the machine gun went through the waist machine gun went through the airplane's window. And it's solid steel about that. We had a great big gash of that. It was a heck of a big piece of flak had hit that. I guess that was about all the experiences in combat.
What about the one, the
Oh,
flight
yeah, I
takeoff?
didn't tell you about the one time we were flying 36 ship groups. And the group ahead of us flew into a box barrage, which is usually not very effective, but that one was timed exactly right. And they flew into that, and every ship got knocked out of formation. Maybe they all made it home, but they couldn't maintain formation anymore. And we were right behind them, and I sat a little down lower in the seat, and I said a short prayer, and it was, "Old boy, I'm in your hands now." But we didn't get hit. Didn't get a hit.
That's good. And the one time you were taken off?
Yeah, that was on a mission with a new replacement pilot. Keep off, or maybe I shouldn't mention his name. But we were taken off, and he hadn't checked the rudder trim tab. And I was monitoring the instruments, this co-pilot, and I heard him say, "Help me," and I looked up, and all I could see was green grass. I thought we'd run out of runway because of the load. And I hit third flaps to jump us up in the air. Well, then I noticed that the airplane was banked real steep. We'd making a sharp turn, so I got on the rudder with him, and between the two of us, we got it straightened out, and then we started finding out what was wrong. we thought maybe when you're on a bomb run, the bomb site steers the airplane through the automatic pilot. We thought maybe they were engaged. We called them up, and they were both shut off, disengaged, so it wasn't that. So then we started hunting, and we found that trim tab cranked all the way over to one side. But nobody got hurt. Maybe got kind of nervous a few minutes.
I would think so. So let's go back just a little bit to your training in San Antonio. What do you remember about your training there?
Well, when we were at San Antonio, that was all ground school.
Mm-hmm.
That and physical conditioning. And you had this study courses in math and different things, and I mean, it was pretty strict. And in the physical conditioning, we ran 5 miles every morning before breakfast. Every day.
Yeah. Were you there in the summer when it was really hot?
Well, it's really hot in San Antonio in the wintertime.
So it was hot. All right, were you there for the D-Day? Did you fly on D-Day?
I flew on D-Day, one mission.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to fly 2 different groups.
Right.
And we flew the first one, and then the troops were advancing so fast they canceled the second one.
Oh, okay.
I was on one mission, I don't know, that was the one, but our airplanes, not our group, but the B-25s that were ahead of our group, dropped planes on our troop, or dropped bombs on our troops and killed General McNair. That was kind of a newsworthy item when he got killed by our own bombs.
Mm-hmm.
I was monitoring the radio and I heard that when they were screaming, "Pull up, you're dropping short." But we hadn't even got close to the target area. And I don't know if I remember right, we were supposed to drop on smoke signals. And the Germans might have got smart, I don't know. I'm guessing that they shot the same smoke signals back a few miles. And when planes come up on them, they started dropping from that, but I don't know.
What do you remember about the invasion
The invasion,
of D-Day?
nothing. It was just another mission, a short one. We bombed the coast, the boys in. We didn't get any flak or anything. And a few days later, I took a new crew out that had just come over. And I said, "Oh, you're going to have a snap." I said, "This is going to be what we call a milk run." I said, "Won't even get shot at." Well, the English had bombed them during the night. And we usually flew across the front line. And when they bombed at night, why, I got them alerted, and when we came across, they had everything pointing skyways. And because of the General McNair deal, they wouldn't let us fly across it. We had to go in and come down the front flying so that we wouldn't be over our troops. They had everything on the ground pointing sky. That airplane just got hit and shuddered, but we didn't get anything, nobody got hurt or anything on it. Just the airplane got a lot of holes in it.
Yeah.
Well, they said if that was a milk run, they would resign from the Air Force right then and there.
They didn't have any choice, though, at that point, could they? So what did you do on your time off? When you weren't flying, like in your evenings?
Oh, I usually went to London, and I was never a real expert, but I liked to figure skate, both on ice and in roller skates. And I'd go to a roller skating rink. They had what they call it? It was a palace, was in the name. I can't remember what it was, but it was all glass. Old palace, and they had part of it with dances in it, and I had one place, a roller skating rink, and I'd go over there and go roller skating ever in town.
Yeah.
If I was local, just an evening and stuff, I'd just go pub crawling.
Yeah.
Or riding the bicycle around to see something I thought was interesting.
Yeah. Did you ever go to the Woodman pub? Did you go to the Woodman? truck?
I never was in it once. Never once.
Oh, no. Have you?
I don't know why. I think when we first got over there, something was said about it being off limits. And because that was said, well, I never was even interested. I know other people went, you know, and they tell about going, but I never went into it once.
No. Have you been back to Nut Hampstead since you were
No.
there? No. No. Tell me about your living conditions while you were there.
Well, we lived in a Quonset hut type, big round group of us in it. It was all right. When it got cold sometimes, why, we'd have a time, you heated it with stove, we had a time keeping it warm sometimes, but it wasn't bad. The food was good on the base, if you like mutton. That's the thing with going to town, you couldn't get nothing but mutton sandwiches, so you ate before you went, made sure you wasn't hungry.
So did you carry any good luck items with you?
No.
No? No?
I always had a guardian angel all my life.
Yeah, what was that?
I never
You
got
don't
hurt in
know?
all these things where I should have. My wife agrees with me.
That's good. All right, do you have, like, your happiest, funniest, or saddest memory of the war?
Not really. Anything real funny, except one I think I mentioned about the adjutant, 603rd adjutant. His name's Rusnick. He usually comes to these reunions. The last one I was at, he was there, and I told this story on him, and he elaborated on it. He was a fellow who could talk he was a glib person. He could talk his way out of anything. And he came out by our airplane one time. We were right next to a fence, a farmer's field on the other side, and actually it was woods right there. And these two girls came riding up on some spirited horses. And he went over and talked to them, and he persuaded them to let them ride the horse. And they didn't want to, but he talked them into it. And they told him it was spirited, you know. So the minute he hit the horse's back, the horse ran away with him. And he went out of sight in the woods yelling, ho, ho, ho. We're going to getting fainter and fainter, you know, farther away, and then you couldn't hear. Pretty soon you heard it real faint again, ho, ho. Horse come running right up to the fence, put on the brakes and stopped, and he went sailing over the fence into the airfield. He elaborated on the tale a little bit when I told it for them. He didn't try to hide it.
That was good.
That was kind of funny.
Yeah, that was funny. So, were you afraid on the missions?
No, I can't say I was ever really afraid. I was raised, I guess, you stand on your own 2 feet and you take what comes, you know, and that. And that time I was telling about on the planes getting shot down ahead, why I thought it might happen to us. I might say I was a little nervous maybe, but I wouldn't say I was afraid, not fear.
Right.
My wife says that I don't have fear.
Okay.
I am 85 years old. I have a 3-story barn. And last year, well actually starting in '84, I was putting galvanized siding on it. I covered it all over, working alone. Then I guess I did the roof first. I put the roof on. And then last year I did the galvanized siding, working off a 40-foot ladder. And so it doesn't bother me. Height's never bothered me. That's why I guess when I went in flying, it never bothered me.
Yeah.
You know, some people, they look down and wow.
Mm-hmm. No. What were you most proud of during your military service?
That we brought the airplane home every time. That was my job, to see that the engines ran as a co-pilot and come home. I think that's the proudest of that.
How did you hear about the bombing of Hiroshima?
I cannot remember how I heard about that, to tell you the truth. I remember when the Germans surrendered, we were in Memphis, Tennessee, my wife and I, and downtown in the street, and they come out, everybody started cheering and dancing in the streets and stuff, but I cannot remember where I was on the Japanese bombing.
I mean, did you feel it was necessary that we bombed Japan?
I think we should have done it. Anything that would shorten up the war, anything that would damage the enemy. They talk about the number of people that were killed, at one time. But think about the people in England that got killed and all the fire bombs and stuff over there. I think that was kind of a shocking sight the first time I went to London and see all these holes filled with water. What had been the basements of the buildings, they kept them filled with water in case they had fires to fight, they could pump it out. So when you went down the street, you see all these brick remains of buildings, so high and full of water.
Wow. That would be different. Do you remember VE Day?
No, I don't really. Well, I guess I do. I guess that was when the Germans surrendered. That was
No.
VE Day.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. All right. Tell us about returning home and like back to your wife and how it was different once you got back home than it was before you left.
I couldn't see any difference when I got back home. I was kind of fortunate. It took me quite a while to come home. I don't know. I think I flew an extra mission I wasn't supposed to, or maybe more than that. But I got back down from a mission. They told me that I was going home. I wasn't supposed to have flown that mission, and I had to get off the base as quick as I could. So I went home, packed everything up. Of course, this is in the evening, and the next morning I was headed for Liverpool, England.
Wow.
And I hung around there for a month waiting for a boat to come back to the States, and we come home on it had been a Dutch luxury liner that had been turned into a troop carrier. And we got to the States. I got on a train for Detroit. I got in Detroit on my birthday, September the 29th. The wife and I went out and celebrated it. Whiskey was watered in the nightclub.
Ah. So what did you do after the war?
I went back to working for the Chrysler Corporation. I'd been working there when the war came. I was working on a production line. I went back to working there. And I started going to school on the GI Bill, learning to be an aircraft mechanic. But there was not much money in that. I did it mostly. I bought my own airplane as soon as I could get one. And it cost quite a bit to get them maintained, so I took this course so I could maintain it myself. And I took a leave of absence after I got my license, aircraft mechanic's license, and I went to work at Willow Run Airport for an outfit that was converting old airplanes into company planes. They didn't have company planes. We take these old DC-3s, some of them have been hauling cattle, stuff like that, and redo them and make them into luxury liners with sofas and picture windows in them and stuff like that. And I worked there for a while, quit, went back to my job. I didn't figure the company had much a future. They were trying to do too big a job for the training and people that worked for them, and that. So I went back to work for Chrysler's. And while I was working there, they transferred the job I was on out to Trenton. I went out there, when I went through the employment officer, they made me a line supervisor before I was operating machines. So I retired from there in 1974. I have a farm 100 miles west of here. That was a hobby farm. When I was a supervisor, it's a strict union shop. Supervisors do not pick anything up at all. If I had something that I needed it over there. If it wasn't already in my pocket, why, I had to have somebody come over, and carry it over. So I had bought this farm to get my exercise. I was raised on a farm. I liked farming, and my kids were young growing up, and they were just the age I could put them on the tractor. The two oldest were boys, and I could put them on the tractor, and they could do as much work as a man. And so we farmed at weekends till I retired. We did a lot of traveling.
So did you use the GI Bill to go to college?
I used the GI Bill to go to a training school when I got my aircraft mechanics license.
Yeah. Do that. Tell me, did you keep friendships with any of your crew members?
No.
No. Yeah, you
No,
lost.
we haven't been in contact. I tried 2 different times to locate some of them, and I haven't been able to. I guess there's none of them joining the association. And I told you about Tim Brook. I tried to get in touch with him that one time, but I never made it.
So how did you hear about the 398th reunions?
Well, after I retired, I got bored sitting around, and I started moving cars around the country. I drove for an auction where you went and got them and brought them into the auction, then delivered them, and then I went to work for Avis, rent-a-car. And this is a unusual situation, the way I thought of things. The biggest car rental at the airport is during the week. All these business people come in and rent cars to go see them. On the weekend, there was not enough room to store the cars on the airport, so we took them out to these outlying car rental things. We brought them in. One time we was on a trip someplace. I know we got talking about reunions and stuff. I said, I've never seen any reunions for my group, anything about it. I don't know why. And this guy I was talking to was kind of interested in the history of the 8th Air Force. I don't know if he had any official standing, but he kept track of a lot of things. And a few weeks later, 4, 5, 6, he came in and gave me a little clipping out of a newspaper. 398 was having a reunion at Oshkosh. That was 1986. Mm-hmm. And I went to it.
Oh, that's good.
But I didn't see it in my papers or anything. I don't know where he got it from, but it was some military reserve paper or something he got it out of. And there was some of the people I knew there, Ed Jones, and I was talking to him, and he said, King, he says, Jans is here. And up to this time, I thought Jans had been dead. He was shot down on this one mission that the plane had a direct hit, blew up, and he was the only survivor. Did you see the sunrise early this morning?
No.
Oh. Well, that was the first, one of our first missions. Might have been our first one. And Major Gray was flying that airplane, if I remember right. Jans was riding in the tail as an official observer. Now, this airplane evidently got a direct hit in the gas tank. There was just one great big orange ball out there, just like the sun looked like this morning come out. It was just a huge, perfect ball. And I thought, my gosh, what are they shooting at us? Make something like this, you know. Mm-hmm. And then out of it, the tail of the airplane come out, and later the other part came out. Jones was in the tail, and he was the only one that survived. And he doesn't remember anything about it.
Well,
I don't know if he's unconscious all the way to the ground. He had both ankles broke so bad that they're fused. He has to waddle when he walks. Mm. But when I saw Jones, he said, Jan's alive. He's coming to the reunion.
that's good.
Well, up to that time, I thought he'd been dead all this time.
Yeah.
We never had heard anything about him. I should have gone last year to Covington. That was fairly close, but I didn't. I don't remember why now. And then because this one's right here at home, couldn't miss this one.
No.
So far, I haven't been able to talk to anybody. This was my 3rd day coming up. Haven't seen anybody I know or anything. I left a note for Ed Jones and Jans on the bulletin board there, and it's still hanging there.
Maybe they haven't seen it yet. I don't know.
Well, the first day I was up here, they were out on a boat trip.
Mm-hmm.
And I hung around almost all day and didn't talk to anybody. And I don't know what it was yesterday.
All right. Is there anything else you want to tell us about?
I don't know of anything significant.
All right. Well, as I represent the 398 second generation, we want to thank you for your service
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for talking.